Hello and welcome back. I have my old 3D printer here. This was bought in 2015, so 10 years has passed. You know what they say? 3D printers are like dogs. 1 year in the life of a 3D printer is like 7 years for a human being. Everything goes so fast in the world of 3D printer that this thing gets obsolete really fast. So here it is, in all its glory. 3D printer. Yeah, that's correct. So, why I would like to upgrade this shitty thing instead of buy a new one? Well, because there is no planet B, and if I can do it for a budget, maybe I thought that it was worth it. But I don't really know. Let's find out. 10 years ago, 3D printer was a whole different story. Now you can buy something and mount it and start to print within hours. It took me 3 months to make something reliable in this machine. Because at that time, 3D printer was like a hobbyist for make them work instead of designing and printing something useful. So what I'm going to do is try and make this thing more stable, but most of all to make it more friendly use. Because it's not that this thing cannot print anything, it's just that it's annoying to use. So for that I have 4 goals. 3 of them are must-have, and the 4th is just not imperative, but I'd like to do it anyway. The first one is about the support of the bed, this L shape here. You know, the Z-axis is right here, and it's just right there. Here is all empty. So printing something when it is cool is not a big problem, it can do it. But if the printed is finished and you want to start all over again, the bed is a little bit bent because everything gets heated. So the second print is not going to go well after that first layer. So I'm going to add more rigidity to the support of the Z-axis. The second upgrade is for the printing surface. You know, back in the day we used crystal as a printing surface, and to stick the objects to the crystal we use hairspray. Yeah, I know, I never used it in my hair, but it was the thing that worked back in the day. Now we have way better choices than this crystal, so I think that these just have to go away. The third item on the list is the extruder itself. Can you see this fan all broken? That is because when the filament is over, you can change it just by pushing here and loading the new filament. In reality you have to dismantle everything. So if you wanted to do it live, well, you may have the risk that the Allen wrench goes in the fan sometimes. So the extruder has to be changed for an upgrade that I found. And the fourth item of the list is that this is a dual extruder printer, believe it or not. So in theory with this thing you can print with 2 filaments at once, but that was never the case. It was never used as a dual printer. So I'm going to get rid of the second head and only use one, because I will never use it. And with that I can have spare parts for the fan. Let's get started. First of all, I think I'm going to add this square here, right below the bed, and I'm going to attach them here. I'm going to use a couple of them like this, and it just saves the screw and the connector, but maybe I need to make it a little bit thinner. And around here I'm going to cut from this piece here, which is way bigger than I need, and hopefully I can do something like it. Let's unmount the bed and see how it goes. All of that dirt is sticky, That is the hairspray that over time makes a layer. Before I started the video, the mess was everywhere in the printer. I should leave it for a good thumbnail. Now we're talking. These holes are for the leveling of the bed, so I can use them, and I need to go as close to the center as possible because I need to have a little bit of a space in the hole for the spring, which tensions the bed. It will be lucky if I have a hole coincident. Maybe it's easier to make these two holes in this piece and then cut around here. Yeah, I think I'm going to go that way. So I'm going to mark everything and then make the cuts. Let me tell you that this looks way more rigid than before. Point 1 and 2 are done, but those were the easy ones. For points 3 and 4 I have to dismantle everything in this carriage. You can see the heater was already removed from the first extruder. Well, actually this is the second extruder. Remove this long screw. I can take this off. This was 3D printer. This is maybe the first upgrade that I made to this thing. I think I found this on Thingiverse. The NEMA motor is removed. This was the second upgrade, and it was the extruder itself, but I think we can do better now. When you upgrade your 3D printer, usually you upgrade your hot end, but yeah, I know. This is not a usual 3D printer upgrade. I'm going to mark these two cables. This is important because the hardware distinguishes between the extruder number 1 and the extruder number 2. So if this is not properly connected, you're in trouble. Last but not least, well, here's the extruder, the old one, and this was the second upgrade that I made to the printer. The one that came with the machine was not very good. And as you can see, this was handmade and made with that machine that wasn't printed properly. This always had a problem, which is that if you run out of filament and you want to load new one, you pass through and it always gets stuck. So now I can just do it. I can just find the hole and load the filament with no problem. But when everything is on the machine with the fan and everything, the chances to properly load the filament were very low. So my hope is that with the new extruder I can do it 100% of the times without the problems. You see, it gets stuck and you need to find the hole, and it was impossible when the machine was printing. Yeah, like that. So these are the parts for the new one, and as you can see it's made out of aluminum and it's looking pretty good actually. More or less it's the same design with minor changes, but you can see there are some differences between the two of them. This one has a hole in here for the spring. This one has something that protrudes to keep the spring in place. And as you can see, this spring was not original. It's something that I made out. There's something protruding here as well. Also here there are minor changes. I don't know how is this going to affect that thing that doesn't have here. I'm going to mount and okay, we will find out when printing. This is dirty. This is a little bit weird. The stopper for the spring is this screw. I don't know how it's going to work. Not that bad when the spring is in place. This actually looks like something. This is way stronger than before. Let's make a quick test. Well, not that bad. Take into consideration that I'm using a very bendy filament. This is probably the end of the roll. So it's the worst case scenario. It looks promising already. Yeah. But the main difference is how strong this spring is and how tight the filament is between the two poles. It's way stronger. So here is the old carriage, and as you can see it's made of plastic, and this is the belt tensioner. There are two screws here and the belt goes in there, and this is the new one. It's made out of aluminum. I think this is going to be a great upgrade, but there's a little problem that I didn't thought about, because this bar that goes here with the two filaments going down there and the extruder that goes in here, well, this doesn't fit in here. I confess I didn't thought about it, so I have to decide what to do about if I can just leave it like that or cut in here or maybe find a replacement. I don't know. The tensioner of the belt is like this. The belt goes in here, right there, and then with this screw it stays in there. It's way more simple, but I think I like more this system because it pushes the belt all along. But well, we see how it works. This feels great actually. Way better than before. Now that I have to stop upgrading the machine, I think it's a good time to explain what is this thing. Well, this printer was made by a company called CTC, being this the Visor Dual model. I have to make a disclaimer here. I by no means an expert in 3D printing, so please don't take my info for granted. I just think that for the purpose of this video, it is good enough. So the story goes like this. CTC made this printer, but they didn't develop it. It's a clone. The people that originally made this printer was MakerBot, and that is so because they also made the slicer software. Even back then, you had to download the MakerBot print in order to make the CTC to work. Once the machine is connected to the software, it is recognized as a MakerBot replicator, and you can start slicing. At first glance, they look different, but I found some pictures of an earlier version, which looks almost the same as the CTC. But CTC was not the only company making replicator clones. There were others. The most known is Flashforge, which still makes printers today. And the model was the Dreamer, again, more or less the same machine, with different versions over time. It looks to me that you just could buy the hardware from MakerBot and stamp your own brand. But if this was allowed by MakerBot or not, or if in reality it was somebody else who really made the hardware for this machine, is unknown to me. If you know something about all of this, please let me know in the comments. The cloning machines turns out to be very helpful for me, because the spare parts for this printer is hard to find, even in China. But instead of looking for just one brand, I can use several brand names for the parts. So after I found nothing with CTC or MakerBot, I tried looking for the Dreamer, and that's how I found a replacement for the bar that hopefully fits perfectly in my machine. And after a few weeks, here's the part. And of course, some tweaking has to be made. Luckily, it's not a big deal though. By the way, you may think that changing the printer from a dual extruder to a single one is a downgrade instead of an upgrade. And in most of the contexts, you're right. But remember that all of this that I'm doing is to make the machine less annoying to use and more reliable. Having parts that I don't use on the way is just a hindrance that I'd like to avoid. And also, now there is more space for more upgrades, but not this time. And therefore I have to remove all the cables that I'm not going to use. Also I have to change some of them because some of the cables are from the second extruders and now are going to go into the first extruder and so on. It's not something really complicated, but you have to pay attention on what you are doing. And with those cables out of the way, now it's time to mount everything back again. The fan, the cooler, the nozzle, the hot end. At this moment I'd just like to be this the last time that I have to dismantle everything. Not like many other times before. And just like that, everything is ready for testing. Well, finally everything that I wanted to do with this machine is done. The 4 items are completed, and this is going to be the very first time that I'm going to switch on the 3D printer, and hopefully, well, let's be honest, it's not going to work first try, okay? But let's try. Alright, we have some light. Let's home. It's moving. As fast as always. Well, not bad. I think I should load some filament. Yeah, let's do it. So I have some thread of filament here, with different colors. And now I'm going to try and change the filament and see how well it performs. It should start someday. There we go, there is filament there. Gray one, looking good. There it is, gray one. Nice. Yeah, doing alright. Final color. Totally works, 100% accuracy. This is really very nice. It's finally printing, and of course it didn't work at first try. But apart from the bed, more on that later, it wasn't because of the printer. It was the slicer that I had to tune to make it work properly. And after some tweaking it prints fairly okay. Better than before actually. There are some issues in the first layer, but it gets self-corrected in the subsequent ones. Apart from that, prints are just what they should be. This is a guitar channel after all, so for the final testing I made a practical part, which is displayed for the tremolo hole in this guitar. The 4 iterations were printed okay and in a row. I've made 4 not because of the printer but because the design needed little changes. Finally I have these 2 perfectly workable options. The first one is for being used as it is right now, just painted and varnished like anything else in this guitar. And the second one is just the same but 1mm shorter in height, so I can stick a sheet of carbon fiber on it. Let's check item by item. The new carriage is a total success. Not only the X-axis is way smoother than before, it's also more silent. In comparison now, the Y-axis makes a lot of noise, even after greasing it. The new extruder is another goal. The older one couldn't handle a spool full of filament, so I had to cut it into small segments. But now it just works as it should. Also, the reinforcement of the Z-axis in this machine is something that should work from the first time that I bought it. And I know it's something that is not very good looking, but it does the job now. But the changing of the bed was a total disaster. PLA tends to warp, and the bed warps with it, making it impossible to print anything. The magnet is just not strong enough to keep it in place. So I had to change to my old glass and my old hairspray. But the first layer doesn't stick properly yet. Well, it is time to answer the big question. Was all of this worth it? Well, from an economic point of view, totally yes. This machine cost 400 when it was bought. And now you can buy something similar for around 150, which is very cheap and maybe it's even a little bit better. But if I have to buy something today, I'll go to something around 400 again, with way better features than this one. All the parts that I bought for this upgrade cost around 70, so totally worth it. For me, make this thing workable again is important, not only because I need to print some parts for my guitars now, but also to give it a second life to this thing and make it last a little bit longer. The only downside is the time and effort, and that's the reason why I can't continue upgrading this machine right now. And I had to change to the old glass, even if I have a lot of ideas to keep upgrading it. I need to focus on other projects with these guitars, but it's going to be very interesting, so you better stay tuned. That's all for now. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.